Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have a bunch of folks who helped make the film Black Bear possible. So we have such a small window of time that I'm just going to dive in quickly on this. So my first question is for Lawrence and Aubrey. As I watched the movie, I kept thinking about it's so uncomfortable. Like this movie is deeply, deeply uncomfortable to watch, I think. And I think that living in discomfort is often a way that we grow, right? I don't say that as a criticism of the film. I think it's actually really interesting. But as a creators making something that is that uncomfortable, like you have to be a part of that process, right? Like you have to live in that as you're writing it and directing it and acting in it. What does it mean for you to live with that feeling for so long in the production of something like this? Like you're not offering easy answers to the audience or to yourself during the process.
Larry, you want to start?
Oh, I was kind of giving you I was giving you the floor because I actually think that you had to because you had to live with probably more discomfort than I did. It's interesting what you said. I entirely agree with. I think going through discomfort is how we grow, and I think I was trying to cultivate that mentality when I was writing the script and making the movie. However, writing the script was surprisingly fun. I guess I did have a lot of darkness and discomfort within me. And I think writing it was kind of a purging of that. And I ended up really enjoying it. It was also a fun way to write because I didn't have a plan. I usually write with an outline, especially when I'm doing like work for hire. But since I was just doing this for myself, it was pretty free flowing and experimental. So I just let myself go. And it was very cathartic to write it. And then, by the time once I was done writing it, it was over, and I lived through a lot of that feelings like that. Although the movie, didn't, like the things in the movie, didn't never happen to me, but they're the feelings I could relate to, and I had to live through those feelings, which was uncomfortable. But while we were making the movie, I was managing, along with Julie and Johnny, a logistical operation. So I think it's really Aubrey that had to embody all that angst while the shoot was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of knew what we were signing up for. Like, um, the script felt almost like a play, so it felt like okay, like we're gonna really be digging in here in a very deep way, which is what always wanted. So I think I kind of gravitate towards that feeling, and like I think those kinds of situations are interesting to me, and definitely uncomfortable. But I think though, as an actor, it's just like um, you want you want the uncomfortableness because that's like where all the good stuff is, and so I think yeah, I think there were like levels of uncomfortableness, um, and I think a lot of it was really productive, um, for the movie. And then I think some of it was just kind of like circumstantial, just the vibe of like the location that we were shooting at and the time, the lack of time that we had and money and all those kinds of things. Like they add another layer of, uncomfortableness just because you're so like stressed about getting the movie done. Um, but I think on like an emotional, like psychological level, like I think the movie definitely kind of hit home for me in a lot of ways. Like it felt very familiar to me, and it was definitely something that took me. Like I was definitely sitting in it for a while. I think after we were done, but
Yeah.
it
Can
was
you
all
guys
good.
hear those?
What is it?
Nothing. Can you hear those dingings? I don't know how to shut them off.
I'm not hearing anything.
Nope.
Great.
Sure.
No problem. Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you for those answers. So on the producing side, Julie and Johnny, this movie is incredibly fraught, and I think it sort of vibrates on this intense emotional pitch, right? That I'm sure everybody involved feels. And again, like I think Aubrey was saying, like you signed up for it in a very real way. So as producers, how do you ensure that working with the filmmaking team, that there's like safety and mental comfort for everybody, right? Like I think that that's part of you watch this movie and you're like, man, making a film could suck. Like it could be really intense when you're dealing with egos and manipulation and all of that. So your film in a film kind of thing, how as producers do you work to ensure that like it's not actually like that?
Honestly, I think it's just knowing who your team is. It's one of the reasons why before we signed on to do the movie, both Johnny and I, when we read the script, I fell in love with it. And as a woman, I'm very attuned and sensitive to scripts that deal with themes of power dynamics, especially between genders, that are going to be directed by a man. Because sometimes those scripts say they're meant to be empowering for women, but we spent 85 pages watching a woman in danger, threatened, naked, bloody, and all of a sudden at the end, she gets the upper hand with her wit and her smarts. And this script wasn't like that at all. But I wanted to meet the person who was going to be the visionary. And when we sat down to meet Lawrence in person, and I asked him questions, I mean, as you can see from your own starting question, he answered so thoughtfully with such acute intelligence and I think deep compassion and feeling for the people that he had written. That made Johnny and I feel safe to say, all right, let's partner on this and build a team that is respectful of this vision and that can all come together to really see it through to the end. And we had an amazing team on this movie from cast to crew. And I don't think there was one person who didn't feel like they were making something unusual, but they were making something great. And that we had the most supremely talented cast that were really speaking for a way of life that as creatives and artists and film people was near and dear to everyone's heart on set.
Nice. I mean, the cast was just personally, the cast, the performances were incredible. And I think it makes this, I think it's part of what makes this movie so uncomfortable to watch because like you're really in it. Johnny, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, with regard to safety and ensuring that everyone, felt good on set and could work within this crazy environment. I think for us, we were all working against this intense battle for cell phone service, which didn't really exist, for internet, which didn't exist. And so, we were all working together as a team against these elements that were counter to traditional filmmaking. We were shooting on a location that we had chosen that was off the grid, that used solar panels, because we were working hard to be sustainable in production. That that brought challenges like power outages when the solar would switch over to the generator and then switch over to diesel. So that drove the actors nuts a little bit. And I'm sorry, Aubrey, for that. But we, it was those structural things that made things really difficult. We were 5 miles down a road in the middle of the woods, everyone close together, but working as a team and having everyone believe in Larry's vision and feeling what this script was about and caring about those issues that Julie mentioned was so crucial. And having the fact that every single person on set bought into this narrative and believed in this, that's what got the film done. And that's something we talk about a lot, is the passion of the entire cast and crew to believe in something is what gets you to the end of however many days you're going to be shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lawrence, I'm wondering what it was like psychologically to direct this sort of scene in a scene, right? The need to elicit the same reactions in this performance, but like maybe not being a manipulative asshole in the process of doing it. Like, I don't know. Did you feel something? How was that for you?
I don't know for a fact that I wasn't a manipulative asshole. You'd have to ask the people who were acting in the movie. I don't suspect they would tell the truth anyway in this context. But the truth is, I don't really feel like I had to do very much. By that point in the movie, the actors were really the point in the movie of which you speak, the scene within the scene. I mean, the scene from the movie within the movie. The actors were really dialed in by that point, and I don't feel like I had to do much. I don't have to influence them much at all, especially by that point. At that point, my mind was much more concerned with time and hoping that we would have enough time to do it. Really, we didn't. And the only reason the movie exists, and especially at the quality level that it does exist at, is because of how just how great and ready Aubrey and the other actors were.
Yeah.
And I'm singling her out there because, I mean, that's the most intense acting she had to do. So if she hadn't been so prepared, ready, and excellent, I just think, I mean, the whole movie rested on it. And you know, in those moments, that I knew in that moment that that was the case. And I just was totally worried that she wasn't going to have enough time to do enough takes. But some of the stuff you see there is first or second take. So it was kind of a miracle. But yeah, so I feel like at that point it was more about checking in to see if Aubrey was okay. And I don't know, it was interesting logistically to direct that many people. If you count the extras, there's probably about 20 people in the scene, all at the same time. So that was a challenge for me. I don't know if you've ever tried to get like 3 or 4 friends to agree on what to do for the night, what party to go to, what bar to go to, what route to take with your family. I mean, it's hard to wrangle that many people and get them all on the same page. But again, luckily I didn't really have to do that much wrangling. Everybody was really competent and great.
Wow, that's a dream, especially because I heard both here.
Oh,
and
it
in
wasn't
other
a dream because it was terrifying, but
but I mean, having such a good crew or a good cast that's sort of like, you know, I heard that there were so many issues
yeah,
with this
that was
production, right?
fortunate.
Both in this interview and other things that I've read about it. And so like, it's nice that felt at least somewhat
Yeah, the
competent and capable.
logistics, the logistics were a problem. So everybody had to be really on point from the cast on
Yeah.
down to the crew. And
Well, kind of related to that. So going back to Julie and Johnny, one of the exciting things about the film is the sort of the movie crew is pretty diverse, right? I thought like in a bunch of different intersections that, was nice to see, especially when we hear a lot about like the lack of opportunities for marginalized folks in film, in crew, in these traditional roles. Like, was that a deliberate choice in the casting of, well, I guess this is also a director question, but thinking more like, is that a deliberate choice? And does your real life sets actually mirror that as well?
yeah,
I mean, I was going to
sorry,
say,
Julie,
why don't you
answer
jump
it.
in on the cast side?
Oh yeah, casting wise, it was
crew, sorry, yeah, but please.
casting wise, it was a deliberate choice. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't one set that Johnny and I run that isn't a diverse set, and that's honestly because it makes a better team. I have personally hated sets that I've been on where I've been the only woman, or there were no people of color, no representatives from the LGBTQIA community. It's an awful feeling. It's an awful feeling to feel like it's insular and elitist and white and male. And that's not film. That's not the arts. Arts is a generous craft where people with different points of views and cultures help put a fine point on a vision and a voice, because everyone's looking at it from a different point of view. And that's an important part of building a team. And if you want to reach a global audience, you should have a team that reflects that audience, for sure.
It's also, I think, more interesting to watch. I don't know. I just wanted the crew to be colorful and interesting and diverse, and not just different races or sexual orientations, but body types, because you see everybody in the movie looks like whatever, they have rock hard abs or whatever. I wanted people who looked real, and so that was part of it too.
Nice. Aubrey, I have sort of like a blended 2-part question for you. I mean, are they kind of related? So you're not only the lead actor in Black Bear, you're also credited as a producer. And, you know, your character, Allison, is an actor turned filmmaker herself. So I'm wondering like how you manage the complex role shifting involved in the film, both in front of and behind the camera. And then like the second part of that is, I'm kind of curious about the experience of playing a different character partway through this film, right? That like there was a tonal shift or a character shift a lot within the same movie.
Well, I would say like it's all about the people you work with, just in terms of producing and acting in the same movie. And I've done it. I've done it once before. Well, kind of twice before, but like I think my producerial role, I feel like really is more about, you know, just being involved in getting the people together, getting, you know, just getting the crew together and being involved in like who we're hiring and who we're casting and just like those decisions. But then once we're kind of shooting, um, it's like Julie and Johnny and the whole team kind of, you know, take the reins. And I mean, they're involved the whole time too, but like, uh, it's not something that it's not something that I have to worry about. Like I can just, uh, focus on acting. And, of course, like, I think I'm always, if I am a producer on a movie, it's like, I'm always thinking in the back of my head about certain things, or just really just try like I guess like I kind of naturally um think about more, just think about the crew and think about like, you know, how, what is everyone's experience on the movie, and I try to make an impact in that way. Just kind of like paying attention to what's going on and trying to anticipate problems and things like that. Um, but like, you know, I'm just lucky to work with really great producers that like take care of things, so I don't have to worry about that when I'm doing scenes and stuff. Um, so like it was it was pretty easy in that sense. Um, but like I think I realized too, like even that I think like most movie, like if I'm in a movie and I'm like the lead actor or one of the lead actors, like I think I just, my brain just naturally thinks about those things anyway. So like it just feels like like an organic kind of thing for me, like credit for me to have, I guess, because I worry about things like that anyway. And I get like, I think, you know, I went to film school, and I've always like liked directing, things like that too. So I just can't help myself. Like I can't help but like think about all of those things anyway. But and then in terms of like the character, um, I think I definitely thought about the script as two distinct parts, um, but I still thought about the script as one whole, because I felt it was very important for me to feel like, yes, it's like an experimental kind of experimentally written script, and it's kind of different in that way, but like it's, at the end of the day, it's still a movie, and a movie has to like, you know, have a beginning and middle and an end. And so like I think I kind of had like a kind of like thought process that was kind of like allowing me to tie both of those things together, and like commit to the reality of each part. But like I had like a kind of a more unconscious like journey that I was going on from the beginning to the end, that actually like tied together in some ways, like probably not obvious to anyone but me, but like I was thinking about it on like lots of different levels like that. Um, and I think like it's weird because I didn't like, there wasn't like a conscious like shift in approach. I wasn't like, okay, now we're doing the second part, so I'm gonna like do my accent, or like, you know, like do some crazy like thing. I mean, Chris Abbott kind of feel like he got to like, he was like, he really like, I felt, and Sarah too, like I felt like they kind of really like took advantage of that and really like did, I don't know, like really like created like two really, really different people. But I guess I was like thinking about it, and I was still trying to tie everything together in this like weird way. So it felt different, but it also felt like there was a through line for me.
Yeah. Well, and then so I guess, Lawrence, I want to ask you, like, why is this in two parts?
I don't really have a great answer. I have this recurring dream that's very similar to the movie. And so some of these things came from dreams, and some came from life, and some came from my imagination. But I have this dream that repeats itself. It has the same theme, but it repeats itself with all these different variations. And so I thought that it's really interesting how no matter how many times I have this dream, I always find it interesting in the subtle variations or sometimes extreme variations on a theme. I just kind of marvel at at that fact. So I started thinking about dream films and maybe making a film from this dream, and that dreams are kind of a pattern. And this particular dream pattern had a lot to do with the world at the time. It had something to do with my personal life, but it also had to do with the world at the time, which I was falling into total moral chaos. And it's interesting that people don't really comment on the morality play that's at work in this movie, but that's kind of what it is more than almost anything. So yeah, I was interested in the variations on this theme in my dream, and I was also tired of normal 3-act structure in films. I do a lot of writing for hire, and all the work that I have to do is usually more conventional and 3-act, 8-sequence kind of stuff that's more formulaic. And on this one, I just wanted to approach it in a more fluid way and surprise myself every time I went to my office, and I didn't really have an outline or anything like that. So I can't really say exactly where it came from, just from that I wanted to do something different and unique, and that I was fascinated by films that have chapters like this. I was inspired by the guy Hong Sang-soo, a South Korean filmmaker who plays around with variation on themes in his films and breaks his films into chapters like this that often comment on each other. Also, this was like 3 years ago, so I don't know.
Sure. We have such limited time, but I think that there's so much to dive into here around like the costs of being a creative, like the cost that it has on the people around you and the impact and the effect it has. You're talking about, not a lot of people think or like talking about the morality part of this. And it's like, I don't know why all of my questions, I immediately like put that aside, even though it's all I thought about after the movie, is, like, this is really interrogating, I think, for a lot of people and a lot of creatives, like how you make your shit, right? Like how the process of putting creative work into the world and the impact it has on others. So yeah, I really appreciate that. At least for me, the putting that out there in this film and making us interrogate and investigate that. We have to wrap up soon, so I want to ask one more question, and I want to ask it in mind of the audience, the women in film audience, right? This amazing community is full of creatives who are both established and up and coming, and they're producers and directors and actors. And when I look at a movie like Black Bear, I think about how it's very daring and it's very strange and it's super weird, and it's bold, right? It's really bold. And I feel like often for new folks coming into this space, it's hard to take those chances and take those risks or even think it's viable to make something that is this, audacious in some ways. And I'm just wondering, this is for all of you, like, what advice do you have for creative folks who want to tell these kind of deeply personal stories or want to tell stories that are not in the standard structure or the standard expectations that one might have of filmmaking.
I'll kick it
I
off.
can't.
And I'll just
kick it off, John.
those are the projects that we want to read. The bold films are the ones that, at least for Julie and I at Tandem, that we're looking for. That's why we got excited about Black Bear when we saw this project. It was so elevated and had chapters and felt literary, and all of those risks that Larry took, we felt those immediately, and it drew us to the project. So I would say to anyone making a project, go do it. Make the bold story.
Great. Oh,
I
you're
don't want to
muted,
interfere.
Julie.
I don't want to interfere with your positive message, John.
No, Julie, why don't you say what you were saying when you're muted, and then I'd love to hear your not
What
positive
makes
message.
indie film so special is that you can take those risks. And for anyone out there who's trying to write something of their own, I would just say get as close to it as you can. You know, be as authentic as you can, be as honest as you can, because that's how you create something great.
Yeah. I would love to hear what you wanted to say, Lawrence, because I think the
I
reality.
feel like this movie got made by sheer luck, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think
had
also,
no idea that it was going to be able to get made. So.
well, I'm also wondering from an acting perspective too, like, is it a kind of thing where you like, not you necessarily, Aubrey, because you're fairly established, you are established at this point, but like, you know, you take what you can get, or like, are there risks involved in playing a role like this for future careers? You know, I think that a lot of times in these kinds of sessions, we're a little like hopeful about shit, when really like the reality is, as like, you know, as I'm someone who's trying to get into filmmaking too, like I want to know the real stories behind like the difficulty of doing some of this work, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of what Julie was saying too, even when it comes to acting, just in terms of like doing things that are authentic to you and being honest. Like for me, I like am such a movie nerd. Like I love all kinds of movies. I love big movies and bad movies and like funny movies and dark movies, and so I like them all. But I would say like just in terms of like making choices about like what movie I'm gonna do, or if it's like a risk, or it's always a risk. I mean, it's always a risk, but like I think it, for me, it's like it's two things. It's like the people that are involved, and for this movie it was like a no-brainer, you know, because Larry's script was so honest and like to a scary degree, and then the actors that we were talking about having, like, they were people that I really, really wanted to work with. So I think it's like those things all just made me want to take that risk. And then I forget what the other one was.
That's okay.
But I think it's really just, yeah, I think it's like you can't, I think people can fall into a trap of like trying to do what they think they're supposed to do, or what they think everyone wants them to do, or like write something that is like the other thing that was so successful, you know. And I think that goes for like writers and filmmakers and actors. And I think for me, like, it's just really about where I'm at in my life in that moment, and is this like the story that I really like want to tell and to be in and to like immerse myself in, because is it am I like connecting to it in a real way? And I feel like if you really are, then sometimes it really can work out, because audiences can feel that, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
Yeah, oh yeah, please.
I think what I should add, or what I was kind of trying to say, was that, you know, I wrote this movie. I have a career as a screenwriter, and I do all this work that is not risky and has nothing to do with the type of movie Black Bear is. So I was only able to afford to do this movie because of that. So I spent a long time developing like very normal commercial skills before I had enough savings to be like, okay, I'm just going to do a weird one. And if it doesn't get made, it doesn't get made, but I want to challenge myself artistically. So, you know, I just, yeah, take risks, but also I don't want to make it seem like I didn't have advantages or something like that, because I didn't like enter the world just making black bears. Maybe you can get lucky and do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe it took me a long time to develop the skills to even write a movie like this in the first place. But you know, I had certain financial leeway where I could say, I'm going to take 8 months and write Black Bear and hope something comes of it.
Yeah.
If
Great.
not, I'll just go back to what I was doing. And luckily I got to make the movie. It was really pure fortune, good fortune. I mean, the
Nice.
hard work too, obviously, and a lot of planning. But
Of course. I feel like I'm hearing both like find the right partners, right? Like folks like Julie and Johnny who want this kind of stuff, like really try and be as authentic as you can. And also like forge your own paths, right? And sometimes it might be a very traditional path and sometimes it might not be. And thank you so much, everyone, for your honesty and your time today. And congratulations on making such a weird, wonderful, deep, moving film.